Hey there, I am Space Tomato. If you haven't seen me on streams or podcasts, you might not recognize me. I have been doing a lot of development videos for Star Citizen for a while, but generally my videos take a long time to do. 10 plus hours of work by the time they're getting to you. There's sometimes a week or two after the news has dropped, which, you know, with only one video able to come out a week, I feel like I'm missing a lot of the information I want to give you guys. So I thought we could start this new video series called Feature Watch, where I can more casually deliver the same information to you, maybe with a little bit less of the polish of the other videos. So for this, I'm generally going to be looking at features from the previous week, monthly reports, Star Citizen Live, Inside Star Citizen, and I'll be talking about one or multiple of these features with you guys on a video that I'm going to try and get out no later than the following Thursday. This series is going to change as it goes. I'm just kind of starting it out now to talk with you guys, but as I get your feedback in the comments and you tell me whether you like it or not, we'll keep going. If you didn't also know, we're still in our mold-infested home that we're trying to get out of, so this whole setup is going to change a lot over the next few weeks. Our first feature to watch is bedlogging. Bedlogging, as of right now, is the only way that you can log in or out from Star Citizen without going back to a space station or a planet. It is an important feature for a lot of people, but you also won't really find a lot of official mentions of this feature or where it came from. Last week on Star Citizen Live, one of the higher-ups in the company actually said basically that it's losing most of its significance, at least in a big way.
We've seen a hot take about bedlogging not fitting the vision of what Star Citizen is going to be. Care to elaborate on what you're thinking about doing with bedlogging and how logging in and out will look in the future? Is there a change to bedlogging? Did I miss something?
I'm not sure what that hot take is, but we're definitely in favor of bedlogging. In fact, in the future, we plan to give the player buffs for getting a good night's sleep in bed, and have that be part of the game loop. But we don't want to limit the player to that. It's like having a bed shouldn't be a requirement to log out of the game. In fact, in the future, we want, no matter where you log out, that's where you log back in. You have all the same missions, like we want your place in the universe to be persistent no matter where you log out. So that's where we're going.
So it'll be an option, but not a requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not necessarily gone, but it is being pretty heavily diminished. For me, this feels like a big change to the game. A lot of us have used bedlogging on and off since 3.0 when it was brought in, and it seems like a good way to go forward with logging out when it comes to the ships, and some ships have beds and some don't. I'm going to talk all about why bedlogging became a thing and everything, but I also was kind of wondering where we got the idea. I couldn't find any sort of official accounts of it really in recent years, so I jumped back over the last decade to see what we could find. And the journey that I went on, it's actually pretty interesting. So I went through quite a few different web pages looking for talk of bedlogging from way back in the day, and I found a specific forum thread from 2014. In this thread, there were all kinds of references and talk of where this idea of bedlogging came from. Lots of good old chatter, back in the day before everything was centralized and we weren't all just on a bunch of different forums. In looking through this thread, I actually found a stretch goal from, I think, $17 million. The stretch goal read, hibernation mode. For the explorers out there, we will add the ability to save and resume while you are out in space. When not in combat, power your ship down, hit the bunk, and exit the game safely until you can resume your journey. So this kind of implied that not everybody could log out wherever they wanted. This was something for long-distance explorers who went through a process to log out in their bed. However, now that's changing as per the video we watched earlier. Or is it? There's actually some reference of this not being as big a deal as we thought. Ben Lesnick is somebody who's held quite a few positions at CIG. He's been there since the very beginning. Now he mostly just educates me about Wing Commander over on Twitter. But back in 2014, he was on the Starcast put on by Geek Domo. It's a Star Citizen podcast. And he had this to say about bedlogging.
The funny thing about the bed is that I see so many elaborate theories about it out there, and we have not sent. We just know it's a bed,
right?
I'll like CS will forward me tickets to like somebody complaining that their ship doesn't have a bed and they need it for this and this and this. Like, oh, we haven't announced any of this stuff yet. So it's to be announced for the most part. I think probably all that has made the bed more of an object than it was going to be originally.
Right, it's just a bed, but people read into it so much.
Yes, the bed is just a bed.
So there is a good chance that this was all kind of based on fan expectations and our own, imagining of the feature. But that stretch goal that I mentioned is an interesting sign. Even on the thread that I was reading back in 2014, people were wondering where this whole theory had come from. But clearly this idea has persisted, as it's a way we've been logging off from the game since 2017. So I did some more digging, and I came across another post. Chris Roberts, at his poetic best, 10 for the Chairman, 2015.
Okay, next question comes from Scooby, who asks, what will living spaces be good for? For example, the living module option on the Retaliated Bomber. Is there a game mechanic behind them? Well, yeah, I mean, we've already mentioned, it was like one of the stretch goals that if, you have a sort of living space, a bunk bed on a ship, that will be a way for you, when you're not in combat and all the rest of the stuff, to sort of save the game without having to be on a planet. So that's really a pretty big thing, because the living spaces are sort of like your save points, so to speak. So there you go. That's, I think, actually a pretty big game aspect, and they're kind of cool. And we are going to do some level of very, very, very light role playing. Not that we want to say, oh, well, you have to eat every 8 hours or anything like that, but there should be some stuff where, you could get a cup of coffee, or you could get some food, and maybe there's like some very small, like, sort of boost or something. There'll be a reason to kind of like do that kind of stuff, just to use it to make you feel like you're part of it. I mean, not to the extent of like a DayZ kind of thing, but I kind of feel like we want a little bit of sort of light use role playing, because I think it would be kind of cool. You don't take a shower for like a month, and then like people start to not want to talk to you that much, that kind of thing.
There's a lot of emphasis in his answer on how these features won't decide the whole game for you, but it's pretty clear in his first part of the answer that he's focused on this being a big part of the game, the idea of saving the game from beds. And then, if it wasn't clear enough, Chris in 2016 strikes again.
It sort of depends how we're going to do it. So we're going to sort of, in some levels, we're going to take a little bit of liberty. Like, for instance, we've said that ships that have beds, if you sleep in your bed, then that allows you to save the game. So, one of the things we're going to do, so you can maybe sleep in your bed in an asteroid field. If there's no other players around, what we'll do is once you log off, we'll take your ship will not be existing in an instant. So if other people are flying around there, your ship wouldn't be there, so they couldn't do anything to it. And we'll also probably do something similar to that on the bigger ships as well.
This question was about ship persistence rather than bed logging, so maybe he wasn't paying much attention to the answer, but twice in a row, it's pretty clear at this point that Chris did want bed logging to be something significant. And then on Spectrum, Matt Sherman came on to give some ideas of how bedlogging would limit ships completely, not just as logout places, but as something that would be locked to the person who logged out to it. So your ship now would only be able to allow the certain amount of people who are on the beds, stopping things like clown car mechanics or the ability to put more people in a ship than are supposed to be once you get to your destination. So this did seem to have more weight to it than a fan theory. They were basically confirming in the official forums that this is a thing. And once this started to be a regular way of logging off in 3.0, if, you could call that regular when it didn't work most of the time, everyone just kind of took it as the way forward, and so we sort of stopped discussing it except for the hopes that it would start performing better. Until now. So it was a pretty popular idea. I think a lot of people have liked this idea, but you'll find plenty of folks, I'm sure even in the comments below this video, talking about how they just wouldn't want to play the game if this were the case, but people want to log in and log off where they want, and I get that. So I'm going to talk about how I think bed logging could work for Star Citizen, and how we could keep both parties satisfied. But first, why is it so important anyways? First of all, bed logging has been basically ever present for most of us. Since 3.0, like I said, all the way back in 2017, we've been logging on and off from beds as a choice. And a lot of us wanted to use it, but as a feature, it was so unreliable that we had to wait patch after patch after patch after patch. So after several years, a lot of people want to see this actually realized, only to now see that it's kind of losing its significance. That brings me on to the next point. This is a really good way to differentiate ships, in my opinion. Let's say you have one ship that can go a long distance. It's meant to go on overnight voyages or missions, a heavy fighter perhaps, and that has a bed because you need to spend the night, log off and log on in that moment. Whereas you have another heavy fighter that's meant to just be a carrier-based fighter, something that's stored on a Polaris maybe, or an Idris. This differentiates those ships and makes somebody who has an Idris make that choice more obvious. That's also why I tend to suggest ships based on this stuff. For instance, the Pisces over the 100i. A lot of people will choose the Pisces because it can hold 3 people. It's the smallest ship that can carry 3 people. You also get cargo, but the 100i with the cargo also gets a refinery system and it gets a bed. And with that bed, it's suddenly a lot longer distance than the Pisces. So if the Pisces suddenly allows you to log on and off wherever you want, that kind of takes away the advantage of the 100i. Well, why would anybody ever buy that ship? So you kind of start to lose some of the things that seems like they were more designed into the game around bedlogging if you do that. And I do wonder why that is. And that's not to say bedlogging isn't important. They can apply all kinds of buffs to your character if you get into bed, or they can take away time or some other thing if you don't use a bed. But that does mean it's losing its significance. That feature that was in a stretch goal that was talked about by Chris, that was referred to by different people on the website, that was clearly supposed to be part of the game for a long time, is now seemingly going away. Hopefully we can learn more about this in the coming weeks and months, because we really don't know much about what this actually means long term. But at least that much can be said. Bedlogging is going to probably not be as important as it used to seem. Now, maybe this isn't so important to most people. I know, different shirt, different day. We've been busy building a home. Sorry. Maybe this isn't so important to most people, right? But I think it could still work and allow everyone to log off where they want. Hear me out. Let's say that you still had to only log on and off from a bed, but you could carry that bed around with you, a cot, a sleeping bag, something you could put on the ground and sleep in. That would physically represent you in the game while you're logged off, so you couldn't really game the system too much, but it also lets you make a decision between everything you're carrying and the ability to log on and off. Star Citizen has always been really focused on this idea of making you make choices and then making you pay for those choices. And it seems like it would make a lot of sense to make you have to give up inventory space for some kind of log on and off mechanic. They could go that way, but it does seem like they're pretty set on what they want to do. I hope they return to this, but it does sound like bedlogging is losing some significance now. Thank you, you lovely viewer, you, for checking this video out. This is a different one than I normally make, but I like to talk a lot about feature development in Star Citizen, and honestly, I can't make the videos I normally make fast enough to keep up with the news. So I want to start doing more of these face-to-face, a little more casual looks at the development and the kind of stuff that I like to talk about. Hopefully the commentary, the news, the updates, maybe some opinions will be something you enjoy. Let me know down in the comments below what you think though, and thanks for watching this feature watch. I'll see you in the next one.